Hello everyone, part 2 of series 4, things you could do in the 80s and no one would bat an eye. I wanted to continue with my Black Widow spider story. When we were growing up, we would avoid having Black Widows in our house by cleaning our house all the time and moving all the furniture consistently as you're cleaning, and to not leave a mess anywhere, because Black Widows will hide anywhere, especially if there's wood. And they also like to hide in basements. So we cleaned a lot. And my family and I, my kids, when I got older, we moved back to Utah, and we were transitioning, and we were staying at my sister Wendy's place in Santaquin, and she had a spider problem. But she was showing us around the basement, and she was showing my 3 little boys, who were 8, 7, and 6, to their room. And while she was showing them their room, this big spider, it was probably the size of her palm, with the legs stretched out, and it was crawling across the wall behind her. And she turned around and she goes, "Oh!" And she went bam, and she smacked it with her hand, and all these guts were on the palm of her hand. And she was like, "Oh, let me go wash my hand off." And my boys, their mouths just dropped open. And I started laughing. When we were growing up, if you saw a spider, you killed it immediately. You don't run and get a shoe, because by the time you came back, the spider was gone, and it could potentially bite you later on when you're sleeping. So we just killed them. My mom would also spray around her house, and not have anything touching the house was the key to not having spiders come into your place. Plus, you had to keep the house clean. So we were used to this. However, Wendy had just moved into her place, and she had a spider problem. And my mom had yet to spray around her house, and so anyway, there were spiders. And my sons grew up in Minnesota, and the only big spiders that I know of are up north. There's like a river spider or something. They're really huge, but other than that, the spiders seem pretty small in Minnesota compared to the ones in Utah. And so there's like big spiders. So my oldest son, who was 8, was like, "Mom, I don't want to sleep in that room. Can I sleep on the couch down here?" And I said, "Of course you can." I woke up though, and I was probably 8 months pregnant with my daughter at the time. I woke up and I had this really bad feeling, so I went over to my son and I said, "Hey, could you sit up?" It's the middle of the night, and he looks at me and he sits up, and right as he sat up, a Black Widow crawled across his pillow, and he looked down and he's like, "Oh my gosh." And I said, "Well, maybe you shouldn't sleep on the couch. Let's go sleep back in your room. Your room's clean, and this couch is a pull-out couch, and it's really difficult to, clean under it and know for sure there's no spiders in it. So let's just go back in your room, and I'll take care of it in the morning." I didn't know what else to say to him, but I just stayed awake all night watching the kids, so there wouldn't be any spider issues. But a day later, I was sleeping on my bed with my husband at the time, and I felt a prick on my back, and it felt like 2 needles going in my back, and it woke me up, but it didn't hurt that bad, so I fell back asleep. And I was deathly sick the next day. I was so sick. And now, I've never been allergic to spider bites. I'm sure I've gotten plenty in my life. And so we were assuming it was this Black Widow. Now, Black Widows are not aggressive spiders. Once they've mated and they've given birth to their first set of babies, they are not aggressive at all. We know this because we used to put them together and try to get them to fight in jars, and they just leave each other alone. They're not aggressive at all. But right after they mate for the first time, and they haven't given birth to their first batch of eggs, they are very aggressive. And so you need to watch out for the really small, younger Black Widows, because they will come and bite you. Well, anyway, I was sick, we believed it was a spider, and in order for them to give you an antivenom at the hospital, you had to catch the spider. Otherwise, they won't give it to you because they have to know exactly what it is that bit you. The likelihood of you catching the spider that bit you is not, I don't even know if anybody's ever done that. So I didn't go to the hospital, and I was pregnant. I was laying there and I was puking, and I couldn't eat, and I kept going to the bathroom because I felt like I needed to pee, but I couldn't pee because nothing was in my body, and I was just laying there and I was shaking. So I was pretty sure I got bitten by a black widow. And my ex called up my sister. She was in California, and they were driving back because her husband at the time's father grew medical marijuana in California. And they're like, yeah, we got some stuff, we'll bring it back, and that should help Rachel. And I've never been fond of marijuana or medical marijuana or anything. I was totally against it, mostly because it was illegal and at the time, and I didn't want to try it, but I was willing to try it because, well, they convinced me that it was a good idea. So I thought I would try it out, and I believed in what they were saying, and I really don't like to smoke. So my ex-husband at the time, my husband blew it into my mouth, and he gave me 2 really long blows, and I took it in, and it messed with my mind a lot, and I got kind of crazy in the head, and I got dizzy, and I couldn't walk around, so I just laid down, and I was a little upset because of how it made me feel, and I went to sleep. When I woke up, I was hungry and I could eat, and I felt amazing the next day. And I remember being so grateful that I got to do this. I got to try this, to know that medical marijuana actually works. And I was glad that I tried it out and listened to them. But I honestly would not have believed in the things that they said if I didn't try it out for myself and go through this experience with getting bitten by a spider. And I'm assuming it's a black widow. I did look up the spider bite and what they look like, and I did have one of those on my back, and kind of what people say it feels like, the symptoms and so forth. But yeah, it was a medical marijuana that saved my life and my baby's life. So I just that's my testimony about medical marijuana and black widows and spiders and just the funness of life, I guess.